We're gonna teach you the perfect time that you can start lifting heavy and become a freak athlete. And we're gonna start right now. So if we're gonna lift heavy, how should we organize our training? That takes us into understanding periodization. And one of the main factors around periodization is that it provides a structure for different types of stimuli. And when we get that structure, now we can understand how specific types of athletes are going to respond to the various forms of stimulus that we're putting into their training. And this enables us as coaches or as self-taught athletes to better predict when our athletes are gonna respond to specific types of stimulus. This is a lot of stimulus, so that we can lead to better performances in the world of sports performance or even in that strength world. One of the major components around broad understanding of periodization is that we need to understand the major components that will lead to a positive influence on training. So we need to understand, how do we comprehend strength characteristics for a specific sport? How do we comprehend exercise selection and even reps and sets? And then understand what that mental response might be from various athletes. If we can really piece all this together, then we can develop a really cohesive training system that leads to a conveyor belt of freaks. So athletes have made it through the slog of the comprehension phase. They're committed to becoming a champion. So what's next? So let's refer back to our previous video on the comprehension phase, okay? That's the phase, that's the point in training when most athletes are going to fail. They're gonna struggle through that point because it's after the honeymoon period. When we're in week 5, 6, 7, 8, that's the comprehension phase. That's when athletes are gonna sit there and they're gonna have doubt. Do they wanna keep working hard? Do they wanna stay committed to that long-term goal? But now they've gotten through that week 6, week 7, week 8. Now they're entering into week 9, and everything's starting to look better on the other side. And that's where we're at with the Ascension phase. We're getting to the point where the athletes totally bought in and they actually get it. They understand it takes weeks and weeks and weeks and months of hard work to elicit a big time response, to attain those goals. They start to ascend physically, mentally. They start to buy in and realize we can get those dreams. We can chase them down. We can keep doing the right work. And that's what a lot of the functional zealots miss out on, is that during this period, as we're leading through the Ascension phase now, okay, so we're in week 9, 10, 11, 12 of training, the functional zealots don't like to lift heavy. They don't like to have things have this crazy emotional response. But when we're in the Ascension phase, if we start to lift heavy and we start to have athletes in the gym create this crazy camaraderie, now everybody's rooting for you. Everybody sees you attain this goal. Now you hit a big bench press PR, you hit a big clean PR, and everyone's around you, and you start to see all of that work can really pay off. And then those lifts can then transfer really well to whatever sport that you're competing in. Nothing can beat lifting heavy freaking and feeling like an absolute freight train, because that leads to understanding that work ethic. That leads to having better mental acuity when you're doing something that requires high levels of coordination. That leads to higher levels of confidence. So now as an athlete, you know that the work that you put into the gym can pay off. And then when you go out and you compete, you're ready and you're prepared to conquer all of your dreams and all of your opponents. So let's get into more of the specifics of the Ascension phase. We're coming off of week 9 where we're gonna have 66% of total volume. Okay, so there's a little bit of a deload, and this is gonna take us into week 10, 11, 12, and 13, and we're gonna give you all those specifics that you can use to help conquer those dreams. So what specifically gets our athletes to lift heavy during this point? And this is where we're gonna go into some of those specifics, okay? So first, Ascension phase. This is gonna be after that deload in week 9, so this is gonna be week 10, week 11, week 12, week 13. Okay, so think about that right off the bat. Okay, this is where we're gonna be about 6 to 10 weeks out from a big peak. Okay, so if we're looking at football, right? Let's say we're 8 weeks out. Football starts in the middle of August, usually, or the beginning of August. So this would put us at the start of June. Okay, so think about it that way. And typically those general attributes of the Ascension phase is that we're gonna have lower volume. And later on in this video, we're gonna give you very specific exercise selection. We're gonna give you specific reps and sets. So you're gonna understand this, but volume drops, intensity goes up, okay? We're gonna have more specific exercises. So movements that will mimic more of the actual sport actions, okay? That's a key concept. More complex movements. So these movements will be harder to get done. But remember, our athletes have done the exposure phase, they've done the comprehension phase, so they're understanding how to improve their skill development, okay? And during this period, okay, so we have the athlete reactive analysis. That helps us identify and bucket specific types of athletes. So we've got a Zen athlete, we've got a social athlete, or we've got the exuberant athlete, okay? During this period, the exuberant athletes are really gonna shine. They're the aggressive ones. They're the ones that love to lift heavy all of the time. This is when they're gonna really come to the surface. So we know that we wanna focus on skill development. That's one of the main factors around resistance-based training, is that if we can improve skill development or just rate of coordination or our ability to be more athletic, we're gonna dominate all of our opponents. So skill development, remember, more complex exercises that are more specific. Okay, we wanna blow up speed with impulse-based training. Impulse comes back to how quickly we can move something in a given period of time. We wanna increase strength and power output, and we can do that through contrast training methods, through playing around with exercise reps and sets, okay? And then ideally, we're gonna have sport identification here. So you should be looking at the seasonal chart. You should be referring back to this video and the seasonal chart that should be appearing right next to my head. That will show you that time of year when the Ascension Phase will be working for different types of sports, okay? Then that's gonna get us closer to the season, just like we mentioned right here, okay? So this is gonna be 6 to 10 weeks out from a peak. Follow the sport season, understand that, okay? That's a key concept in periodization. That's the biggest factor that we've learned here in parabolic periodization as far as general planning. If we have a sport that is more speed focused, so think about a field-based sport, okay? That goes back to that sport identification. If we understand it's a field sport or a court sport, there's gonna be a little bit more locomotion. So on athlete day, we're gonna do more speed-based work. We're actually gonna run sprints. We're gonna run hill sprints, do things like that, okay? If we have a sport that's like volleyball or basketball to a point where it's a little bit more reactive, tennis, yes, there's running, but it's very reactive as well. Then we're gonna do more of that reactive work or the reflexive work, and that's gonna fall under the skilled strength umbrella, and we're gonna do that on athlete day and on impulse day. So this is the general concept around the Ascension Phase. Now we're gonna go into the specifics behind reps and sets, exercise selection, and how you would have those workout splits laid out during these weeks. Okay, so now we're gonna go into the Ascension Phase. Remember, this is week 9 with the deload, week 10, week 11, week 12, week 13. Also, quick aside, deloads in our system, okay? Deloads in garage strength program design and parabolic periodization. Parabolic periodization is our model. When we do a deload, that deload is about 66% of total volume, okay? So we're dropping about 33%, but that does nothing to intensity. Intensity is still full go, okay? So that's one thing that we gotta think about. Now, when we're looking at exercise types, reps and sets, and then this workout split, this is how we set up the Ascension Phase. So exercise types, we've gotta think through that lens of what type of strength characteristics are we looking at. And we go deep in the Garage Strength Program Design book and course, which is a 5-hour course where you're gonna see all those ways that we identify specific characteristics for each type of sport. So we're gonna use technical coordination movements for exercise types. That means we might use something like a 1-box clean for football players. We're gonna use a high butt snatch for wrestlers. We're gonna use a low hang clean for swimmers. We wanna start to get into positions that are gonna directly mimic the different sports that we're dealing with. Okay, so if we have a basketball player, we might do a high hang snatch. That's a power snatch. So that's one of the things that we've got to think through. That's very, very key here. During the absolute strength period, this is transitioning. Remember, we're transitioning from comprehension to ascension. So when we're in this, a lot of the absolute strength stuff is going to be based off of contrast methods. Okay, we've done videos on contrast methods. Check them out if you need to have a little bit clearer understanding there. Now, here's where things get very interesting. A lot of the work in 3A is going to be reflexive work, or more so skilled strength umbrella. Skilled strength is the umbrella, reflexive work is going to be under there, plyometric work is going to be under there, dynamic trunk control work is going to be under there. There will be some hypertrophy work as well, but everything is going to get a little bit more specific. The reps and sets, okay? So if we're doing a technical coordination exercise, like a 1-box clean, we're going to do 6 doubles. And there might be a week that we do 6 doubles all at the same weight. And then there might be the next week where we ramp up slowly, okay? Another example, we might do 2 triples and then 4 singles. Or we'll do 5 sets of 1, 2 sets of 3. So these are different examples that you can look at. Now, if we have a potentiation week, That potentiation week, we might use waves. We'll go 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Now, absolute strength exercises. This is where we're gonna go into 3 doubles, 2 sets of 5 unbroken. All right, so if we're doing a back squat or a bench press, a front squat, single leg squat, or one of my favorite waves to use during this is more of a pyramid, not Amway, but an actual pyramid scheme for training. We're gonna use 5, 3, 2, 3, 5, okay? Do a set of 5 on the bench, then you rest. Do a set of 3, then you rest. Do a set of 2, then you rest. Do a set of 3, then you rest. Do a set of 5, okay? So that's the example of waves that we're gonna use during the absolute strength. And then here, if we have hypertrophy or reflexive movements, this is a rep scheme that we would see for hypertrophy movements, so that'd be like 3 sets of 9, 1 set of 17. This might be like doing a tricep pushdown or doing a reverse hyper, something along those lines. Now, if we're gonna do reflexive work or that skilled strength work, so let's say we're trying to do like the Sanders cut or a Euro step drill with reflexive work with a plate, we might do 7 to each side or 5 to each side. Now, this is where we're gonna get into the workout splits. Okay, so we just gave you all the exercise types that you're gonna use, and you're gonna get more specific. Remember back to the attributes of the Ascension Phase, you're getting more specific. Now we gave you all the reps and sets, right? So now you have reps and sets, you understand that. Now we're getting into the workout split for the week, okay? It's gonna follow the Parabolic system layout. That means leg power day is day 1, upper power day, day 2, athlete day, day 3, impulse day, day 4. No one else does impulse day except for garage strength, baby. Day 5, hypertrophy day. Now, when we go into the nitty gritty, this means power day, leg power day, technical coordination, absolute strength, and then we're gonna get into some of the specific reflexive work. We just talked about that. Upper body power day. So this would be, we're gonna do a complex technical coordination movement. So let's think about Sam Mattis doing a behind the neck jerk at 500 pounds. That was during the Ascension Phase. Okay, so he hit a behind the neck jerk at 500 pounds. And then after that, he did a really heavy bench press. Okay, so on that upper body power day, you're gonna do a technical coordination like a push press, a behind the neck jerk, something like that. And then you're gonna follow that up with a big bench or an incline bench, something along those lines. And then when we finish, we're gonna do something like explosive push-ups to boxes, explosive pull-ups, where we wanna slam that sternum against the bar, something along those lines. Athlete day, we're gonna do that PVC pipe work. Okay, we wanna work on stability, we wanna work on actually being reactive, and then we're gonna do a lot of unilateral and bilateral jumps, or if we have something that we're a field sport athlete, we might do sled pulls, we might do hurdle hops into a 10-meter sprint, anything along those lines. We wanna do unilateral and bilateral exercises that are gonna transfer really well to the sport. Impulse day, we wanna move things fast and ideally be moderately heavy. Okay, so this might be a power clean that's done at 70 to 75%, but we're moving it quick. If we're doing a single leg squat, we want the single leg squat to be unbroken. And here's where a lot of the skilled strength stuff is also gonna factor into the impulse day on day 4. Day 5, this could be hypertrophy based. Okay, so a hypertrophy based day 5, or skilled strength based, depending upon the weakness of the athlete. And when we have coaches or even self-taught athletes, one of the things that people say is, well, I don't train 5 days a week. Well, the first one that I would cut out would be that hypertrophy day. So if you only train 4 days a week, you would still want to do leg power, upper power, athlete day, and impulse day. And then if you only train 3 days a week, you could choose, okay, you want to stay with these 2, because remember, you want to lift heavy, right? But then these 2 would be the next priority. Figure out if you need more athlete day work or more impulse day work. And I love to talk about, if you're in a weight room, you know, think about meatheads from a football team. During this phase is when everybody is going nuts. They're playing crazy music. Everybody's rooting for each other to hit big lifts. Now's when everything starts to grow, okay? This setup is what creates champions, because the Ascension Phase is where people start to ascend that mountain of training. They start to ascend the periodization, and they start to see the vision is attainable. So keep this in mind. This is the specific layout of the Ascension Phase. Go back, you know, make sure that you have the charts in mind so that you can understand how you guys can lay that out. So remember, you guys can go back, you can look back at the attributes, you can look back at this, make sure you have the charts that we're putting in the video, and that's gonna help you design your entire program around the Ascension Phase, but it's gotta be sequential. Start with the exposure phase, you lead into the comprehension phase, you crush life during the Ascension Phase, and that's gonna take us into the next key phase of parabolic periodization. Okay, so now we're passing over that hump of training and we're really starting to build that true potential of each and every athlete. This is helping us get closer to our dreams and realize that those goals that we once thought were insurmountable can actually be attained. So we want to help people like you guys. We want to help coaches like you. We want to help self-taught athletes like you. And that's exactly why we put together our Garage Strength program design course and book. And it's a 5.5-hour course where I lecture on all of these things specifically. How do we identify sport characteristics? How do we actually work through workout splits? How do we set up specific reps and sets and exercise selection for various sports? If you want that specific course to help you become a great coach or a great self-taught athlete, head over to garagestrength.com. You can pick up our Garage Strength program design, Parabolic Periodization for Sports today. Now, be sure to stay tuned for the next videos that we're releasing on the summit phase, on the realization phase, on everything that pieces together our parabolic periodization programming. Because remember, freaks, if you guys want to become a champion, you've always got to cultivate your power. Peace.